Assalamu alaikum and hello to our audience members joining for our new edition of Career Conversations. You all will notice that it's a bit different this time. In our third year of developing these podcast sessions, we've decided to do something different. Previously, we used to shoot these live on location, but we realized over time that we are missing out on some very interesting guests who are not physically located in Dar es Salaam, which is where we used to do our shooting. And so, for the first time, we are trying out this virtual modality so that we can get you interesting guests from other parts of the world as well. My name is Farhan Yusuf. I'm your host for the Career Conversations. And this time round, I think I always say this because of how we pick our guests. But once again, we have someone who is in a career that is of huge interest to me personally. And I look forward to having this conversation with him. Muhammad Abbas Peera, who will tell us a little bit about what he does in the space of media and public relations. Karibu Muhammad Abbas.
Assalamu alaikum, Farhan. How are you? So, just a
Walaikum
short
salam. I'm good.
yes, just a short introduction of myself. I'm Muhammad Abbas Peera, born and raised in Arusha, and left Arusha in 2017 to for studies. And ever since, I've been in Mauritius pursuing the career in advertising, public relation, branding, and now nation branding as well.
Okay, thank you for that introduction, Muhammad Abbas. Can you take us through, maybe your early days in Arusha? Where did you study? What subjects did you take? Just so we can start from the very beginning.
From the very beginning. Okay. So I studied in at a Jaffrey School in Arusha. A lot of students, a lot of people from our community do go to Jaffrey. It's like the Al Muntazir of Arusha. So we have a lot of students there, and so I did from nursery all the way to A levels at Jaffrey. Initially, I was science student, so did science through O levels and A levels. I even took PCBM, so physics, chemistry, biology, and mathematics, because I had a different career focus at that time. But so during my A levels, I was very torn between either doing engineering or medicine, things that we hear about all the time, things that we are always aspired to become as we grow up and things like that. So that was the initial plan. However, we plan God plans, and He's the best of planners. Uh, I had applied to a lot of universities. At one point, universities outside Tanzania were too expensive. And then when I got into universities in Tanzania, by chance, coincidentally, that year, some of the universities were not allowed to take first year students. So I had enrolled into KSMC for optometry. I decided to take the same line as my dad, who is an optometrist as well. But they said they're not going to take first year students. So the option was either to do diploma or to find something completely different. So yeah, that was quite a blow, because mentally I had taken 1 year after my A levels to figure out what I want to do. So it was quite a tough time, because I finally managed to find something I wanted to do. I had gone through the applications, but anyways, it was a good rocky phase as well. So what happened was that at that time I was already very interested in journalism and media. So I was already learning photography, videography, and I wanted to do a little more. I wanted to get into more into storytelling journalism. So that's how I got into the media sort of field. And by chance, my dad met a professor from Middlesex University, Mauritius, in Hajj. So he told my dad about universities in Mauritius, and that's how my dad was like, you know what, just try, see what they have. And they found this, I found this course. It was advertising, public relation, and media at that time. So the media component was very interesting because I really wanted to go into journalism because storytelling is something I really enjoy and something I do as well. So I was like, that would be a good career path. And I applied, and to be honest, another main reason I applied, I was very excited to see that they didn't have any exams. Because I do not like exams. So that was one reason why I decided to like it pulled me closer to apply at Middlesex rather than any other university. So it was a very coursework based course. So I applied, alhamdulillah, I got in, but I was a science student. So because I was shifting into a whole other field, I had to go through 1 year of foundation, which I did in Mauritius itself. So I did 1 year foundation and then moved into 3 years of advertising, public relation, and media.
Hmm. Well, now you see why I like asking people their backstories, because that's where we get to hear all
Yeah.
of these different details, motherworks. And I think a sort of common thread that has been there in many of our conversations, and which I love highlighting, is the fact that for some reason, many of our speakers end up being people who've had a very interesting journey in terms of like they wanted something and then something didn't work out and then they got into something else and then that ended up being their pathway. And I love those kinds of stories because, as I usually say in our sessions, uh I feel like many youngsters, students, youth, feel like they have this very rigid sort of idea of what they want to do in life. And then if that doesn't work out, people tend to get quite discouraged and all that. And so, it's always good to hear these kinds of stories, right? Where people wanted one thing and it didn't work out for whatever reason, and then they pivoted. And, I always emphasize on adaptability being a very important skill that young people need to learn. And I think stories like yours definitely emphasize on that as well. So Madhavas, very interestingly, you mentioned this no exam sort of way that your university works. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So what happens is that a lot of courses we know, like throughout school, we've always known that everything you study has to have an exam in the end. And personally, I have like extreme anxiety when it comes to examination. So even if it's just basic form filling, I absolutely hate it. So the course was designed in such a way that you get to do coursework throughout the year, and each coursework has a specific weightage that goes towards your grade. So unlike other courses whereby you have courseworks, but they do not carry as much weightage as your final examination, in this sort of courses is the opposite way. So we didn't have any examination. Rather, their thinking is that coursework gets us more industry ready, especially in the industry we are working in. So it was structured in a way that we had different modules focusing in different courseworks. So towards the end of the year, you have actually probably gone through a full real-time project. So what students have an option of basing off on fictional projects or real world projects. So like you can really work with a company or take a company that already exists and make them your case study and work through it. So that's the direction I had gone in. I worked with a few companies locally here just to use them as case studies and do physical research with them so that I could actually work on my course. So I found that being hands-on, I was it was easier for me to keep up with the course as well. And that process of, interacting with the industry physically actually helped me leapfrog a lot of challenges in the industry later on.
Yeah, that's us. I know this because we've had a conversation before, but just for our audience, post your bachelor's, you also did a master's. Like, what has that
Yeah.
journey been like post completing your?
So I will go a little. I'll take a small step back, and you were speaking about adaptability. So I told you that I did join the course for advertising, public relation, and media. After my first year of my bachelor's, media was discontinued. So they introduced branding. So again, I had this idea of going into journalism because of the media component. And now all of a sudden, from uh, analyzing news reports, analyzing, global events and the likes, I'm now looking at, packaging, I'm looking at image of companies, I'm looking at, logos and stuff like that. So there was another, while doing the degree, there were moments where I even thought of, maybe it's time to transfer again. But not all of us have the options or, the capabilities, or there's a lot of factors that are involved before you even decide to transfer. Where do you transfer? Is it going to be affordable? So it's always finding a way to adapt and how to make, let's say, the different passion you have in life to connect what you're doing physically, which I found very important. So then found branding very easily, and ended up actually doing my master's in a component of branding rather than a component in media. So after I finished my degree in advertising, public relation, and branding, I had specialized in international diplomacy and place branding in my third year. So it was a good opportunity for me to now go back into media in a sense whereby I get to work with the image of countries and image of nations and how to portray them. And that was something that was very interesting for me. And I worked on a few projects. I did one on Mauritius, one on Zanzibar, and both the projects were actually uh, the comments that we the not the comments, but like the feedback we received was that they are ready to be implemented because the research was done in that extent. So after finishing my degree 2 years later, the university were offering place branding as a master's program. And during that time, I was not sure what I wanted to do in master's, because if you look at the master's program in marketing, you have business management and marketing or digital marketing, things that I was things that I was already doing, but I didn't want to specialize fully on that. I wanted to do something a little different. And because I had performed really well in the place branding module during my degree, so the university lecturers reached out to me and told me that, look, we have this program. If you'd be interested, we're taking around 15 students. And I applied for it. I got in, and last year in October, I completed my master's in place branding. So it was the first ever time a place branding master's was ever introduced, and we were the first batch that ever did it.
Interesting, Madhas. And we've had a previous conversation. I told you I find this whole area quite fascinating, because I do think, especially I'm an African at heart, and I do feel like there are many African countries that would really benefit from this kind of a skill set. So I'm glad that we have this kind of program, and it's great to hear about it. Madhabas, after your master's, so what are you currently doing? Where are you based? And if you can take us through a day in your life, what do you do?
Okay. A day in my life. Okay. So currently I am a marketing manager for a group called Shamal Group. It's a Mauritian-based group. They focus in three avenues: travel and tourism, in retail and sourcing, as well as real estate and eco development. So I overlook the marketing for the whole group. Uh, so funny story. uh, how I ended up at this company was during university itself, when there was a 2-year lockdown that was imposed. So I never ended up making it to Tanzania. I decided to stay back, and I was doing a lot of freelance work in terms of designing, social media, stuff like that, just to be able to support myself during those years. And they were one of the clients that I got as a freelance. And after I finished my degree, they offered me a full-time job. After my first year working with them, I got promoted into the management team. And ever since then, so it's 4.5 years I'm now with them. But as of last year, I'm also operating on my consultancy. So I do consult for marketing and strategies for a lot of companies in Mauritius locally, in South Africa, and in Tanzania. So what I do with those sort of clients is we work on their business strategy, we work on their marketing strategy, their perception in the market. So, for instance, the clients in South Africa are a B2B travel company. They operate from Kenya all the way to South Africa. So that's Kenya, Tanzania, uh, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, and we are currently trying to promote that destination. So it was a really good challenge for me. I have to learn about each of these destinations, what they have to offer, what sort of market we can penetrate into, how we can, because each African country is unique to its own identity, and you can never mash up all of them and sell it as one product. So it's a very good, interesting challenge that I got, and this is what I do on a day-to-day basis after my work hours, of course. And then with the company in Mauritius, we look at, because it's also a travel-based company, so we work with a lot of external destinations. So I work on the product side of the of what we have to offer, how we market it, what sort of experiences. So there's a lot that goes into the thinking. So this is where like I spend a lot of my time trying to understand the psychology of consumers and how we can use that to market it to them. So yeah, so that's just generally what I do. I work with clients in food and beverage. I work with clients in travel and trade. I work with a few politicians as well as their personal PR. So we look at, policies that are coming up, how to navigate it, how to make sure a decision that's not going to be favorable to the people, but it's necessary. How do we present it in such a way, strategies to make sure that a specific politician can now grow in his career to become a minister and the likes, or how do they get the support of the people? These are things that I also am very much involved in. But if I tell you how my day goes, so my day always begins with a cup of coffee in the morning, and I'm at the office by 9 o'clock. And yeah, so during the morning, it's just usually setting up my whole day, seeing what we have for the day, what we have for the week, checking up with my colleagues as well, what collaborations we have, what projects we have pending. So usually the morning just goes up in catching up with emails and the likes. And afternoon, after lunch, after namaz, that's where we see where most of the thinking goes into now. So it's more about implementation. So so it's more about implementation. We need to make sure everything is out. So by the end of the day, we know we have our projects out for that specific day. So that's how our days are split. And then usually after when I finish work, I finish around 4:30. So on some days it's an early day, so I get to go home, cook, do my house chores as well. But other days then I have my consulting, so I have to meet my clients, we need to plan their work and stuff. So on a good day, I'm home by 9, 10, depending on, it's part of the job. So yeah, it really depends. Every day is kind of different. I also do not have like fixed schedule on what I need to do every day, or every day needs to be planned in a specific way, because I get bored of habits. So like I'm not a person who enjoys, like, having something like I need to know at 2 p.m. I need to have lunch at 1. No, I don't really do that. I enjoy living in the age, as you could say, and navigating day by day. So it keeps me on my toes. It keeps me, moving. It keeps me active.
Sounds very exciting, Madhavas, and I can relate because I'm exactly one of those people as well who's not a fan of routine. So, the more
Mm.
dynamic your day, the better. And I'm sure, just like me, when I first heard about some of the things that you do, I'm sure some of our audiences also will think of the TV show Scandal and you being a fixer for famous people, which is, and I'm sure a very interesting place to be in. And later on in the podcast, I will ask you if you are able to share some
Mm.
interesting story if available. But Mother asked one question about. So it seems that you are working while you are pursuing your masters. Is that something that was possible for you to
Yes.
do?
Yeah. So actually, I found it. I didn't want to get into a master directly after finishing my bachelor's, because I didn't really know what industry had, or and I'm glad I did that, because if I was to get into master's right after finishing my bachelor's, I knew I would have fallen into something like digital marketing or business management, and it's something that is overflooded in the market. And digital marketing every year just gets easier and easier. I teach my clients how to handle it on social media nowadays. I don't even take it up on myself, because it's something that's so easy. There's every sort of facility for them to do it. So why, charge people for something they can do themselves? Things like that. So I'm glad I didn't do that, because from 2021 to 2023, 2024 as well, digital marketing and business management has become such a common subject. And we see digital marketing is even being phased out with the introduction of AI, for instance. So I'm glad that I took 2 years in between to see what the industry actually needed. And then I got into a master's program, which actually was enough time, I think, because it didn't disconnect me with university. So when I went back to studying, it wasn't like I'm restarting from scratch. Like I still remember how classes used to be, how to do my coursework, how to do, all of these things was there. So it was a good enough time spent in between. And I also found a master's program that allowed me, even if it was full time, I was still able to work, because I did my master's with Middlesex University, but not the Mauritius campus, with the London campus. So it was an online based master's program, and I had my classes at night. So I would finish work at 4:30, quickly rush home, finish whatever work I have between 4:30 to 7:30. 8 p.m. I start my classes until 11 p.m. So it was hectic, but I couldn't have wished it to go any better than that. I got to work, I got to study at the same time. And because I was in the industry, so whatever I was doing in class, I was experimenting it at work, or whatever I've already done at work was actually directly being transferred into a coursework. So it was a really good experience. And I think so if because of that, and actually in February last year, I won the best plain brand strategy for an island that we promote here. So I was already closely working with the island here. So to work on their image and everything was much easier. So during the day, I'm already working with them on specific projects. In the evening, I'm just writing new strategy for them for my assignment. So it was a very good experience.
Madas, firstly, I must say you definitely lead a hustler's life, which I feel like, since that is the common popular notion right now, I'm sure many of our audiences are going to be quite wowed with how you are able to do so many things at the same time. But I also, like this, you're bringing up some of the points that I'm a big sort of advocate of. One of it being, that we should not hurry into, doing masters immediately after bachelor's. Of course, there are different circumstances, but by and large, I feel that what you mentioned is exactly key, that you have to take some time, and especially in the currently rapidly evolving market with so many things changing, you don't want to end up doing a program that by the time you're done with the program is already redundant in some shape or form, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
world that we live in right now. And so I love that. And I think I also love, the fact that you picked the master's program that allowed you to work. I'm also a big advocate of, getting work experience while you are studying, which you have mentioned is what ended up getting you a job, because you are already doing things while you are doing your bachelor's, and then also getting the kind of master's program that allows you to both work and study at the same time. I mean, it is definitely difficult. I agree and I empathize with that, but I think it really provides good value, as you have mentioned, when you are able to sort of use your industry insights into your studies, and especially at the master's level. So those are, very key things I feel. Mother
I
was
think so. This,
the other thing.
yeah.
Yeah, go on, go on.
So no, I'm just talking about working and studying at the same time. I think so. A lot of students right now do find that comfort zone of just studying. I would just take an example of the last few years that I've seen that I've interacted with students, and I personally find that while working while studying, even if it's just freelance or type, like part-time jobs, they actually help a lot. One way you could be earning something to support your own studies. It makes it all very more meaningful that you've completed something. At the same time, when you are studying and in industry, what happens is a lot of times in university. So, for instance, in my bachelor's as well, I was working part time. I was doing a lot of freelance work. So what happened was that you get a lot of experience in the industry, because what happens is sometimes the universities base courses fully on theories or fully on case studies. And you find that the case studies over time tend to be, outdated, because the circumstance when the case study was presented and what you are doing now, sometimes the situations are totally different. Or sometimes you're seeing a case study from another side of the world when you live in a world where things don't work at all. So, for instance, take an example. If you look at advertising in Tanzania, we still have this culture of seeing big trucks pass by on the road with the speakers and that sort of marketing. And but it's totally phased out in other parts of the world. But we know in Tanzania it works. So if you are in the industry, you are working, you are studying, but you're also in touch by doing small things. Like, it's not hard right now. You could be digital marketing is easy, social media management is easy. Sometimes it's just even, taking a small job as an assistant in an office, or, going in as an intern. It's very important to know what's happening in the industry you're studying in, because if you lose that sort of link between your studies and what industry requires, you're going to struggle after university.
Definitely agree with everything that you said, Madhas. Madhas, now tell us a little bit about how it has been both studying and then now settling down in Mauritius as a country, right? Because I think, Mauritius has sort of come up as an academic. I remember when I was finishing A levels, which was quite some time ago, it was the Malaysia boom where suddenly, I think from my batch of A levels, around 50, 60 people went to Malaysia together. And then, over the years, we've had, I think, the sort of Malaysia phase went down. There was India, I think in the last, and maybe I would say even like slightly pre-COVID or just during COVID is when sort of, I think Mauritius came up on the on the map as a viable sort of option for education. And I'd love to hear your insights on what your study journey has been like, but then also now that you are settled in Mauritius, what has that been like?
So the whole journey of Mauritius, I think, when I first came to Mauritius in 2017, there was only one student from Tanzania. It was shout out to him, Muhammad. He was uh, he was the and we had never met before. I think we had crossed paths when he was studying in Moshi, but we that's the only person like I had not even known with him, but I knew he was there. So we were the two Tanzanians, and then we had a few joining. I had a few friends who joined in later on in my batch as well from Dar es Salaam. And I think ever since then every year we had an influx of students coming in. So yeah, Mauritius generally when if I see how my life was as a student here and how now that I'm working, it's two total different scenarios. Because as a student, you're not really worried about a lot of things. Your biggest worry in university. And I think so. It's the same for a lot of students. A lot of students go study in a place, but thinking about that they would ever settle there is never the first thought that comes into mind, and neither was that the case for me. So while studying the first 2 years, I never thought, it never even crossed my mind that I want to stay in Mauritius, because for me it was like, I finish my study, then I go back. And then sometimes as students we're very naive as well. We always have that perspective that either it's home or Europe or Canada or the like. So there's more opportunities there, but I think it's not really the case. Wherever you are, there is opportunities, and there's no opportunity. You create the opportunities. It's as easy as that. I'm just saying it's as easy as that, but it goes with a lot of hard work, of course. But so you while being a student, it was very easy. The good thing is there's a community here. We have a mosque here. So that was a very good support system, sort of, that, we had that community. We knew we had some sort of sense of home, because, you have those same routine programs you have at mosque. So you don't actually feel homesick, because you're around that environment and there are people out there. So that was something really good. And the culture wise and everything is very easy to adapt here. Yes, there are some students do find it difficult, because there is not such a active nightlife per se, or a very active, social life or things like that. But it wasn't a very difficult journey studying in Mauritius. The difficulty part came when COVID hit. So that period of COVID where I was here for 2 years, and I had done like what had happened was that when they had lifted lockdown, we were allowed to freely move in the country, but we were not allowed to exit the country. So what had happened was I had 17, 18 friends. We were all living together in Msafakana at the mosque. And when they announced lockdown, a lot of them left. Literally, from in a span of a few hours, the Msafakana went from 20 students to 2 students. And it was myself and another student from Madagascar who doesn't speak English. So we were two strangers in the Musafakana and everything, but time passed back. After lockdown ended, where now things are starting to go back to normal, that was the most difficult part, because now you don't know anybody. Your support system, all your friends are gone. So that's where that was the start of when I think that the idea of settling here came into mind, because I was doing a lot of odd jobs at that time. So I was doing delivery driver. There was not a lot of supermarkets. You had specific times to go to the supermarket. So I became a delivery driver for one of the suppliers, so I was keeping myself busy that way. And during that time, I got to meet a lot of people. I got to meet a lot of clients, and that's when I started growing my network. I started growing my network of having my own clients, of working in the industry. And that's when I saw the potential of what Mauritius has to offer. And because I had already started working on that network, I started working freelance for a lot of clients. When I got the job opportunity after university, it wasn't a hard decision to stay because I already knew how things were. People already knew who I was. People already knew what sort of work I do. So it was easy to integrate into the work life here as well. So yeah, so as I started working as well, because of those 2 years of independence, of those years of struggle where I had to figure out everything on my own, I ended up knowing every corner of the island. I knew every sort of avenue I wanted to do, what sort of internships there were, what sort of job opportunities there were, what of sort of services people need. And that way I was able to get into a company. I was getting into a company and it's got the opportunity to take whatever I've learned. And it's the good thing is that I will always appreciate is when I joined the company, I was given creative freedom on a lot of things. So I was able to now whatever I've learned out there, I was putting it onto action, and it was a it was a much smoother sort of way of settling. But I think that if I didn't have the opportunity to freelance or the opportunity to move around during my holidays or during that COVID period, I think so settling would be very difficult because I think so from 2017 until now, from all the students who have come to Mauritius, I think so I would say two or three have stayed back. Everybody else has gone. So I can't say it's an easy journey, but it's not impossible. It's very possible. And there is a lot of good opportunities here.
Thank you, Adas. And I think, what you are basically doing is almost giving like a experience masterclass on creating opportunity out of adversity, right? Which is again, it's an important skill to have. It's part of adaptability, right? Whenever you sort of get stuck somewhere, you just find how to make the best out of it. And I love hearing those kinds of stories. Madhavas, in the work that you do, what is an aspect that I'm sure you love your career entirely, but what is like one aspect that you would say you really love about the work that you do, and what is the one aspect that you're not a big fan of?
One thing I love about the career I am in is the problem solving. So what happens is that a lot of people, whether it's business strategy or it's a marketing strategy or it's a PR mess that you have to solve, you need to know how to creatively solve that by ensuring minimum impact. And I love that sort of challenge when someone tells me, it's an impossible situation or an impossible scenario and trying to solve that. So every day there's a new problem and you have to figure out how to solve every problem. And sometimes you don't have an option. You need to solve it because someone's career or someone's whole business is on the line or things like that. So that sort of adrenaline I really enjoy at work. It allows you to think outside the box. It allows you to, experiment different strategies. Yes, sometimes it fails and it blows back on your face, but that's something part of the job. You when you fall, you get up, and so that's something I really enjoy about my job. And I also get to travel a lot because I I am doing destination marketing, so I get to experience a lot of destinations, a lot of traveling, and I love traveling. So that's something that I really enjoy about my job, my career. Things I don't like. Um, I was never a people person, and I don't think so. I still am. I'm still a very introvert when it comes to scenarios. Uh, Struggle with like, social scenarios and everything. But unfortunately, I'm in a career where you need to be part of these networks. You need to know how to, you know, if speak to people, you need to know how to express yourself. So the people aspect is very difficult for me. I wouldn't say I hate it because I really get to meet really good people. I get to learn a lot, and it's quite important. So I wouldn't say it's something I hate about my job. No, I just find it uncomfortable, but then I don't mind it. Actually, at some points when, like, if it's a social meet and I have to uh talk about the career or the work, it's much easier for me to speak compared to, like, general chit chat here and there. So that's something I don't hate per se, but I find difficult.
Otherwise, it's hard to believe that you are not a people's person. But fine, I'll take your word for it, and I guess that's what the career has done to you, which is
Yeah.
a great thing. So now we come to that question that I had hinted at earlier, and you can tell us if you are able
Yeah.
to answer this or not. Is there like
Mm.
an interesting incident or in relation to some of the things you've done that you would be able to share anonymously, of course?
Uh, I don't think so. I can get into the specifics a lot, but what I can do is I can just give you a few projects that I've worked on that were quite interesting. Um, I joined a travel company when there was no travel. So the borders were closed, but I got employed by a travel company. And that was like, I questioned it so many times. Everybody was just looking at me like, you're going to join a travel company when there is no travel. So the good thing was that we had to support the travel company. So my managing director at that time, him and another colleague, we started going into digital marketing. So whatever, we use the brand name to now create a digital agency to support the travel business. So that was an interesting period. So we had to raise funds to allow the company to sustain. At the same time, then we got the expertise. So we had to work on our own PR because now travel is relaunching, and there was a lot of issues for a lot of travel agencies and travel companies that had a lot of tough time during COVID. So now you have to rebuild your image, and a company that we had to use the little that we had, and we just, it was such a fun experiment. Every day we'd just come up with a crazy idea. I'm like, let's put it out there, let's see what the reaction was. We would get so many negative reactions, we would get so many calls, we would have to like fight, on the radio, we would have to do this. We had a lot of fires to put out, but then small PR stunts and moves actually got us a lot of attention. We also worked on a flight to nowhere. So we worked on the whole campaign. It blew back extremely badly because we there was a lot of things that had not yet gone properly, but that was a very fun experience. So we had launched a flight that goes literally nowhere. So it was like a sightseeing flight, but you go on a proper plane and you get to shop in duty free. And that was like a dream that we sold. We sold 3 flights in less than 12 hours. Each flight was around 300 passengers, but it never happened because obviously it was a very sensitive time in the travel industry and things like that. We've worked with PR campaigns where, let's say, someone is going to totally lose their position in government, but we still have to make them relevant. We have to give them an image. We even worked on with some politicians who like on their charities. There are people who are like, you know, there's always a human aspect of people, and a lot of times when we see people on TV, we see people out there, we forget that they're human as well. So I worked on a lot of campaigns where we focus on the human aspect of politicians, and that really helped. And it was a very fun project to work because the criticism a politician gets is just next level. Like, you can do whatever you want, but the haters are going to hate. Like, you're going to, and if you can't take criticism and you can't take all those, like, you can work on a campaign day and night, and it will blow back by just someone putting a comment on social media, and that's like, a snowball effect. So you're constantly trying to to make sure that things don't die down completely, but you still reach your end goal. So yeah, these were some of the interesting things that we worked on, but there is a lot. Like, we've turned around bankrupt businesses, we've turned around franchises by just small gimmicks. Sometimes it's just the simple things that count. So it's always that creative thinking part of, like, trying to see how to do something slightly differently just to get attention, just to get people to notice what's happening. And slowly, slowly, the brand or the person wins the trust of the people. So yeah.
Well, now I know who to come to when I ever need I fall into trouble because I tend to be quite active on social media and I'm always like I'm just like one, like tweet away from being cancelled or something. So at least now I know who
We
to
know how
come
to
to
spin
for.
things, don't worry.
Okay. Thank you, Mandas. And not just for me. I think, I hope this session travels and people know because I feel like these are also those kinds of things that people are not even aware that they are available as like career pathways, but also that they are viable as careers, right? And I think,
Because, like,
especially in this part of the world.
yeah, I would give you an example. For instance, in our own communities, I don't think so. PR is something that people actually care about much. Or you've seen the Jamaat elections, you see things like that. You see a lot of people just, you have manifestos coming out, you have ideologies coming forward, you have people putting themselves forward, but there is no sort of finesse in how it's done. So you find sometimes people undersell themselves, or sometimes there's specific project, because PR is not only related to people, but it could be a project as well. And I'll give you an example. You see the Aga Khan institutes, whether it's their universities or their hospitals. Their PR work is fantastic because they are a reliable name. So, not getting into the details, I know a lot of people have their whatever, but in terms of a strong brand, it's a very strong brand. If you compare the brands that we have outside and those that we have ourselves, you see there's a disparity there. Why is we're offering the same sort of services, we're offering the same sort of technology, we're offering the same sort of skill set, but we're always losing out. And this is where you see that aspect of PR is missing. We don't know how to portray ourselves. We don't know how to portray our projects. We don't know how to gain support from our own people. And this is where PR actually comes in, We could, let's say, Careers Hub, that's a project. If people do not support it, it's not going to, the next 3 years is going to be difficult. So how you portray yourself, what sort of moves you make, how to keep people interested, that's something that PR actually does. And I think it's something that actually is a lot of PR professionals are needed in our community.
I completely agree with you, Mother. That's why I was very excited when we, thought of you as a speaker and you kindly agreed. Because the other thing is, I mean, these days I feel like you can't have a conversation about careers, etc., without talking about AI because of how it's, shaping us. And I think that now with deep fakes and, like all of these things, I think the whole thought process around PR will have to be that much more, aggressive, I guess. So maybe aggressive is not the right word, but we have to start thinking about these things more
Yeah,
strategically because there is going to be an onslaught of a lot of misinformation, disinformation, and
we already see it.
what. Yes. And what AI is doing is that it's putting that power in the hands of everyone, right? So now
Yeah.
you don't even need to be like a graphics designer or something like that to come up with
Mm.
these kinds of things. All it takes is a prompt on an AI agent, and suddenly you have, a whole machinery of propaganda and misinformation if you want to.
Yeah, if you want to literally learn how to create lies and make them soundproof, just go in AI and it will do it for you. So at this point in stage where you have AI doing a lot of things for you, doing facilitating a lot, it is where actually more than ever, I think w- individuals need to stand out. You need to showcase what your actual talent is, what your actual skill set is, because you could be a graphic designer and you're afraid that, let's say, AI would take over your job. I don't think so. That's necessarily true. It's if you allow it to take over your job. What are you doing? It all comes down to the person. I use AI in a lot of my things as well, but it all comes down whether you decide how much of it represents you or how much of it do you want to represent it. You have to always have your identity. This is something that I think so we have always been taught from when we were young. Like, we have our identity, we have our, like, these are small things that we don't think about it because they're not directly related. But when our parents always asked us, Kachi bol, Gujarati bol, or like, just that sort of small, sort of like behaviors that we were taught from when we were young actually allow you to have an identity. So when it comes to you versus the AI, you have your identity that's unique to yourself, but an AI it's a chameleon. It can be any identity you want it to be, but it can never be you because you have been built up with all these, experiences during your childhood, all these sort of lessons you've learned from your parents, from people in the community, from your madrasa malims, from your school teachers, people you've met. All of these facets have helped you, have made you who you are now. So you need to know how to use AI and how to separate it from, like, who you are and who AI is. You can never allow that to merge, otherwise you yourself will have an identity crisis, which we already have.
Yeah. Madhavas, me and you, I think, can go on speaking for hours and hours, and hopefully we can do that outside of this session. But I think, in the spirit of wrapping up the session now, because I know you also have to get back to ending your day there. I guess my sort of last two questions for you would be: number one, according to you, what are like some key skills that young people need to think about if they want to get into this career that you are in? So media, PR, branding, and all of that, the key skills that are needed. And just generally, as sort of your parting note, any specific advice that you have for young people who are, either thinking about careers right now or getting ready to come into the job market?
So if you allow me, can I merge the two? Because what I would say that are skills that would actually help would actually be my advice as well to people entering any industry per se. So a few things I would like to say. The first thing is something we spoke about in the beginning is being able to adapt. We have this behavior of, constantly being very stubborn of you want things to be exactly the way they are, or you want things, you have that comfort zone that this is something that's going to be very difficult, whether you're thinking about moving out of your house to go study abroad or you're planning to settle abroad. These are things that you need. You need to prepare yourself for anything and everything. Tomorrow, you're staying in a place where you don't have a lot of people. You still have to figure out things on your own. Like, you need to adapt. You might not have, for instance, I'll be very honest with you. The hardest thing that I've had to adapt still today is laundry. We are so used to, we don't know when our laundry is done, who does it, how it's done, how there's no stains on clothes. If you ask my mom how many times on a phone call, I ask her, mommy, how do I remove stains from my clothes? Because I spill coffee every morning, and it, like every month I have to have a tutorial on how to make sure there's no ketchup stains on my shirt. Like, these are small things that you need to be able, they're small things, but if you do not know how to adapt, because you cannot keep buying new clothes every day. It costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of, like, it's not easy. So being able to adapt in any situation you're put in is something very important. And I would give all credits to my parents for that. Like from when we were young, they would always like send us on a summer camp or send us to do like a 1 month internship here. So I still remember all the jobs that like all the during holidays where they have sent me, who I was working with. I still remember every bit of that. And I think so it's very important. Very important. It allows you to be able to adapt to any sort of scenario you have. And even if you look into the career, so for instance, PR, not 90% of the time, your strategy is not going to work out fully, or your marketing plan is not going to work out fully. It will only be a success when you know when a problem arises, how you have fixed it, how you have not been stubborn to actually learn. Because what happens is a lot of campaigns fail, whether it's PR, advertising, or marketing strategy, business strategies, they all fail because of the stubbornness of either the owner or the strategist. If you are not able to learn how, let's say, your audience is taking things, how people are reacting to stuff like that, if you are not able to adapt and change, your strategy is going to fail massively. So it's very important to always be ready to adapt. Number two is I forgot the second one. Yeah, what was it? Number two, I would say is, yeah, know what you want to do. For instance, in life, you will not get everything. Sometimes when your first job or the first opportunity you get, you will either get paid well, but have really bad working hours or a very bad situation, or you will have flexibility, low pay, but you will still be able to do what you want to do. Or three, you will have creative freedom, low pay, but like, very specific projects probably you've never thought about. So you should never be like, you need to know where you want to get in life. Do you want to probably, if you want to become a business owner tomorrow, you want to be an entrepreneur, I would never say take the option of making a lot of money. You go for the option of being flexible. So you're able to get creative freedom, you're able to learn, you're able to meet people, you're able to form more trust. Or, if you want to, let's say, just grow up on a corporate ladder, go for a good paying job, work the hard hours, find the trust in the company and climb the ladder. So this notion of as soon as I get my degree, I will earn good money, I will have good work, I will have good working hours, I'll have like, the best social life is all a myth. Like, you need to know there's going to be sacrifice in everything you do. Choose what you want to sacrifice. Like, let's say, for the next few years, you don't mind working on a basic salary, but what you're going to learn is you're going to be meeting people, you're going to learn, you're going to be put in better projects, you're actually going to have a better social life or things like that. Or so know that in life you're not going to get everything. You have to choose what you want, and that's the best advice I could give anybody. Like sacrifice, but it's going to pay off.
Thank you so much, Madhavas. I mean, again, something that resonates with me a lot. I'm always telling people that one of the most important concepts I have sort of carried with me is the simple notion of trade-offs in economics, right? Where you are like, in order to have something, you need to let go of something. Like it's just
Something else, yeah.
that's how things work. But I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Madhavas. I learned a lot from this conversation, and I'm sure our audiences will as well. And I hope you end up getting many more clients wanting to fix their online images. It's such a relevant thing right now, and now they know that you are able to do this. Thank you so much for your time, and we wish you the best in everything that you are doing and in all your many hustles. And to our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you in our next career conversation.